Howdy, folks. Welcome to this week's Ag Report. So this week, I'm going to try to put all the spokes together in a wheel, okay? A wheel doesn't go around with just one spoke in it. It kind of looked like a clown car. It would wobble. It takes multiple spokes in that wheel to make it go around smoothly. So I'm going to try and give you the big picture, as some would say. So the question had been asked of me, and there had been some concern that people had been seeing some reports recently about meat, about short supply of meat, maybe not seeing meat on the shelves as much, kind of like during 2020 during the pandemic. And so I want to try and explain a little bit about what you are going to see and the reason why. Okay, so I've talked several times in agriculture. It is not a microwave fix. It's not an instant fix. Everything takes a long time to produce. And once you have a problem, it takes a long time to fix. Some people kind of, give the analogy of the Titanic. Okay, it's a big boat and you can't turn that thing around on a dime. It takes, a long time and a lot of space to turn that thing around. So with that concept in mind, let's start off by remembering that we just had a epic drought last year in Texas. And it was very widespread, pretty much the whole state. It rivaled. So when you go and Google things, it's going to talk about 2011. Okay, 2011 was kind of the most severe drought on record. It was comparable to the 1950s drought. Now, the difference between 2011 and the 1950s was numerous years. It was like a 6 years long stretch of period in there. So it was very extended. 2011 was not. 2011 was, maybe a 16-month period or something like that. But it was extreme in the conditions. The drought we just came out of last year was notably marked similar to 2011. Okay, so it did big things. Now, I'm going to try and condense this all down. When you go through a drought, you're having to cull your animals. So you're selling off your oldest one, your least productive ones first, because you can't afford to feed them and you are running out of grass. As a drought gets longer, then you start selling the next best animal and the next best animal to where you're left with just the best, and you're hoping you can hold on to those. So what does that mean for meat on the counter and you shopping at the grocery store or that kind of stuff? Okay, so the feed yards, the processing plants had record number of cattle coming in. They also had record number of heifers coming in. Now that's important to take note of, because heifers are where you get your breeding stock and you grow your herd and you replace internally by keeping back some of those heifers that become productive mothers to replace mothers that have died off or gotten unproductive. Okay, now remember I said there were record number of heifers going into the feed yard. So now here we are the next year after that drought. The United States as a whole, because of the drought in Texas and the drought in other states, will have the lowest cattle numbers of record ever for 2023 and 2024. Okay, so our cattle numbers are at the lowest on record as of record keeping. Now, you can't just, here's where that microwave comes in. You can't just instantly fix that. Okay, it takes, once you breed a cow, then it takes 9 months to have a calf. Then that calf has to grow up. It either goes back into the herd to breed again, or if it's a steer, it goes into the feed yard to be processed. So you're looking at 2.5 years before something is on the shelf again in the grocery store. Okay. Now, remember I talked about that wagon wheel, and there's all kind of spokes in that wagon wheel. So we've been talking about the drought and the cattle numbers here. Remember, cattle are traded globally and shipped, everywhere the beef is. So add into that strain of record low numbers, China. China got most of their protein from pork. Well, the African swine fever got into China in 2018. And through 18 and 19, it decimated their pork industry with, I believe the estimates are around 225 million pigs lost. Okay. So protein is protein. You've got to have it to live. So China had been importing and has been importing American beef to offset the loss of the Chinese pork. And the Chinese figured out they like American beef pretty good. And so that demand is growing, and a lot of the Chinese are not going back to pork as they are trying to rebuild their pork industry. They are rebuilding it. They have not gotten rid of the African swine fever over there. They just put in a directive because what they were doing in China is they were feeding food scraps back into the pork. And they figured out that if there was some food scrap that had the African fever in it and they fed it back to the pigs, they got it all over again. So they've been for 3 years kind of regurgitating this problem. And they have just banned feeding food scraps back to the pork. So that puts a draw on feed grains and corn and things like that. So it's more expensive to feed out the pigs in China now. So again, that's where some of that higher demand is for the American beef. The Chinese are saying, well, if I'm having to pay all this money, I'll just get some, good American beef and steak like that. So put that into that little cog that not only is America, being pulled on to feed Americans, some of that is being pulled on to feed over there. Then you have Brazil. They have just got, I think it's BSE over there, and there's been some bans put in that Brazil's not able to export their beef. So then that puts a little more pull on American beef. So you've got all these outside forces wanting the beef. We have the lowest numbers as of record. Texas is predicted to have historic low numbers rivaling 2011 again. So the next 3 years in the beef industry is you're going to see cattle at sale barns at record high prices because everybody is trying to rebuild their herd. Then you have the feed yards and stuff. You're going to see those numbers drop because those heifers are going to come out of that equation because people are going to keep those for breeding stock. So you just got steers going back over there. So those steers are going to be a premium price in there. Now, don't misunderstand and don't think that the rancher is just going to be, driving a Brinks truck home from the full of cash from the sale barn. Okay. You got to remember, they have been producing these cattle on $5 diesel. They've been trying to raise these cattle on $150 a bale hay. They've been trying to feed these cattle historically high grain prices. A lot of this is due to inflation. The folks that are giving suggestions and input to me are saying that inflation has not gone away yet. They expect inflation to run on through 2023. Inflation has been running 8 to 9% a month, and they predict that to continue. They think it will be 2024 before inflation finally goes back to, say, 2016, 18 levels of 3-4%, annually. So you've got inflation prices on there. So you've got a lot of factors in there. What does that mean? That means probably beef prices are going to continue to tick higher at the grocery store. Mathematically, there's just no way that they're going to turn around in the next couple of years because of all of these factors that we've talked about there. The cattle are going to be high at the sale barn. There's going to be, a lot of demand trying to grow these numbers back together. Now, what does that mean for you to the consumer? Prices are probably going to continue to tick up. You're probably going to maybe have a little difficulty finding your perfect cut that you want, whether that be, a roast or a T-bone or whatever. Doesn't mean they're going to be, empty for long periods of times, but I would think that there might be some little hiccups along the way, just because as those numbers go down, they're having to, decide, well, are we going to grind these cattle because we need, more ground beef over here, or are we going to take these into premium cuts because we need them over here? So there could be little hiccups along the way on there. There's not going to be, don't think that there's going to be a place that you can just, I'll just go it here and get it a whole lot cheaper. Cheap meat is that cow has left the barn, a year or so ago. But you still have choices, no matter where you're viewing this video. A quick internet search or a call to your local city hall can get you in touch with local farmers markets and ranchers that are working really hard to provide you with locally sourced cuts of meat. So I would, as always, suggest, you're having to spend a lot of money, whether you're going to a big box store or not. Try and invest that locally with your local ranchers, because they're trying to rebuild their industry. They're trying to feed America, and they're also trying to feed a lot of the rest of the world. So I'd encourage you, if you have that opportunity, to try and look around locally. But I know that's a lot to absorb. Probably felt like I hit you with a fire hose trying to get a drink of water. But I wanted to try and give you the big picture. There's a lot of things going on in the cattle industry and a lot of reasons behind it. And I wanted to try and give you an explanation of why this is not going to be a quick fix. It's going to be kind of like going to rehab when you get knee surgery. It takes a while. Takes a while to get back through it, to get back on your feet, and to get back into normal movement. So y'all take care now.